Summer, 1943. The Eastern Front trembles under heat, dust, and the constant roar of engines. The air smells of oil and smoke. The sky, heavy with the weight of a coming storm. Germany is preparing for its greatest gamble yet, Operation Citadel. After 2 years of brutal fighting, Berlin believes this strike will change everything. It's meant to crush the Red Army once and for all and reclaim the initiative lost at Stalingrad. Months of planning, thousands of maps, endless calculations. Generals move symbols across their charts, convinced they're orchestrating a perfect victory. And at the heart of this plan, machines unlike anything the world has seen before. The German High Command is obsessed with technology. Their new weapons, the Tigers and the Panthers, are meant to rewrite the rules of war. The Tiger, a steel beast of nearly 60 tons, carries the power of an entire battery. Its 88mm gun can destroy a Soviet tank long before it comes close. The Panther, sleeker, faster, and deadly, built as an answer to the Soviet T-34. In propaganda reels, they look unstoppable. Shiny armor, disciplined crews, perfect formations rolling across open fields. Berlin calls them the future of warfare. Soldiers call them miracle weapons. Every officer knows the plan. Hit fast, cut deep, surround the Soviet defenses near Kursk, and crush everything inside. It's supposed to be the largest armored assault in history. A thunderclap that will make the world tremble. But reality doesn't care about plans. And under that same burning sun, on the other side of the front, the Red Army is not sleeping. Soviet intelligence already knows what's coming. They've been preparing for months, digging trenches, laying mines, positioning artillery. Their defense stretches for hundreds of kilometers. It's not just a line, it's a fortress made of earth, steel, and determination. When German tanks finally begin to move, the sky fills with dust and thunder. Columns of Tigers and Panthers roll forward, their crews confident, their radios alive with orders. For the first few hours, it looks like victory. The ground shakes, Soviet positions burn, and German officers send triumphant reports to headquarters. But soon, things begin to go wrong. The perfect operation starts to unravel. The heavy Tigers sink into soft ground, bridges collapse under their weight, and the advancing columns slow to a crawl. Crews realize their mighty engines overheat in the summer sun. Some tanks stop before even seeing the enemy. Every kilometer forward now costs hours, sometimes days. And the further they push, the stronger the Soviet resistance grows. Minefields tear through the formations. Artillery shatters their rhythm. The battlefield turns into chaos, smoke, fire, and broken steel. By the third day of Operation Citadel, commanders understand this isn't going to be another Blitzkrieg. It's a different kind of war, one the Germans are not prepared for. Their heavy armor, once a symbol of perfection, becomes a burden. Tigers can't maneuver in narrow passages. When one is hit, it blocks the entire route for those behind it. A single destroyed tank can stop an entire column. Meanwhile, Soviet T-34s move like water, fast, flexible, unpredictable. They appear from the flanks, strike, and vanish again into dust and smoke. Every time a Tiger fires, a dozen Soviet tanks surround it. The German miracle weapons, the pride of their engineers, begin to show their flaws under real battle conditions. Engines fail, gearboxes crack, fuel lines burst. Dozens of machines are abandoned before they even reach combat. And in the command bunkers, radio messages grow darker. One word keeps repeating in reports: Delays. No one knows it yet, but the largest tank battle in history has just begun, and it will not end the way Berlin planned. By the fifth day of Operation Citadel, the dream was fading. Reports that once spoke of steady progress now used words like stalled, immobilized, burned out. The Tiger, once a symbol of invincibility, was now a mechanical nightmare. Its thick armor, which made crews feel untouchable, also made it helpless on the move. Bridges collapsed under its weight. It got stuck in mud, in craters, even in its own trenches. When a Tiger broke down, it stayed where it died. No ordinary vehicle could tow it. Only another Tiger could. And so the battlefield began to fill with monuments to German engineering, immense, silent, and useless. Even when they fought, the Tigers were not the unstoppable beasts propaganda had promised. Yes, they could destroy a T-34 with a single shot, but there were always more T-34s coming. Dozens, hundreds. They moved like a living wave, fast, simple, coordinated. Each Soviet crew knew exactly what to do. One distracted, another flanked, a third finished the job. It wasn't elegance, it was efficiency. And efficiency wins wars. German crews began to feel something new, doubt. Their confidence, once built on steel, now cracked under the pressure of reality. Inside the tank, the heat climbed past 40 degrees. Oil and sweat filled the air. Engines screamed, gears jammed, shells clanged inside the turret. Every movement was a fight against the machine itself. The Tiger was supposed to make its crew feel powerful. Now it made them feel trapped. When Soviet shells hit, even without penetration, the shock rattled their bones. When fire broke out, there was nowhere to run. Escape hatches jammed, smoke filled the cabin, and men burned alive inside their metal pride. But the true disaster was happening with the Panther. It was supposed to be the perfect predator, a faster, cheaper, more mobile killer. In reality, it was rushed into production, barely tested. Engines caught fire, transmissions failed, fuel pumps exploded. Entire battalions lost half their tanks before reaching the front line. The German generals tried to hide it. They called these failures non-combat losses. But every non-combat Panther meant one less hope for victory. Berlin still sent out cheerful broadcasts, talking about progress, heroism, unstoppable machines. But at the front, soldiers knew the truth. Their miracle weapons were eating themselves alive. The Red Army saw it too. Soviet scouts reported burned Tigers left behind in the fields, some intact, just abandoned. Commanders laughed. The Germans have built tanks that can't move. For the first time since 1941, it was the German side that looked clumsy, outdated, slow. Their precision had turned into paralysis. Their engineering genius into a burden. And somewhere in the chaos of the Kursk battlefield, a dangerous realization began to spread among the German crews. The enemy wasn't afraid anymore.
The Soviets no longer saw the Tiger as a monster. They saw it as a target, big, heavy, and doomed. That was the moment when the illusion broke. The illusion that perfection in steel could win a war of endurance. Because in this war, it wasn't the strongest machine that survived. It was the one that could keep moving, no matter how many times it fell apart. The morning of July 12th began with a sound that froze the air, a low, rolling thunder that seemed to come from the earth itself. It wasn't artillery. It was the Red Army moving. Hundreds of T-34s advanced through the smoke, their engines howling like a swarm of metal beasts. No grand maneuvers, no elegant tactics, just a wall of armor pushing forward. German commanders couldn't believe what they saw. They expected the Soviets to retreat, regroup, not charge straight into them. But the Red Army had learned. They knew the Tiger was deadly at distance, so they erased the distance. Tanks collided head-on. Crews fought at a range where every shell was a kill. Dust, flames, twisted steel, the fields of Prokhorovka turned into a boiling storm of machines. Inside the German radios, chaos ruled. Reports came in all at once. Panther 32 immobilized. Tiger 21 on fire. Enemy breaking through on the left. Command posts that once sounded confident now screamed in confusion. No one knew where the front line was anymore because the front line no longer existed. The T-34 was never the perfect tank, but it was enough. Fast enough, cheap enough, strong enough. And when there are 1,000 enoughs, they overwhelm perfection. German units tried to hold. They fired until their barrels melted, until ammunition ran out, until engines stopped responding. And then, silence. The Luftwaffe, once the hammer of the Eastern Front, was gone. Fuel was scarce, pilots exhausted. Above the battlefield, the sky belonged to Soviet planes. Yak fighters diving, IL-2s slicing through the air, filling the horizon with fire.
On the ground, Soviet infantry followed the tanks. Bayonets gleamed, grenades flew into open hatches. There was no mercy, no time for fear, only momentum. By sunset, entire German divisions were cut off, encircled, erased. Their invincible armored spearhead was gone. And yet, in Berlin, reports still spoke of progress. High Command called it a temporary setback. They claimed the Tigers were redeployed, the front stabilized. But inside the surviving crews, the truth had already burned itself into memory. They knew it was over. Those who escaped told the same story again and again, of engines dying in the mud, of shells ricocheting, of men pounding the armor from inside, begging to get out. What began as the greatest tank offensive in history had turned into a graveyard for German pride. When night fell over Kursk, the Red Army didn't celebrate. They just kept moving, because they knew this was only the beginning. The myth of the unstoppable Tiger was gone, and in its place stood a new truth. No machine, no matter how perfect, can outlast a nation that refuses to fall. After Kursk, silence fell across the German command. No triumphant speeches, no radio broadcasts about final victory, just silence. Heavy, uncomfortable, and full of unspoken truth. The dream of dominance had cracked. Every number told the story. Thousands of tanks destroyed, hundreds abandoned, entire divisions erased in days. What was once a lightning war had turned into a slow drowning. Factories back in Germany were working day and night, but it no longer mattered. They built tanks that couldn't reach the front, planes that had no fuel, weapons without men left to carry them. The iron dream, that belief that technology alone could win, was dying under its own weight.
Inside the factories, workers whispered rumors about the Tigers that burned before firing a single shot, about the Panthers that broke down faster than they rolled out, and about a front that kept moving west, no matter how many miracle weapons were promised. Propaganda still spoke of secret weapons, of vengeance, of a new phase that would change everything. But soldiers at the front knew better. They had seen what happened when belief meets reality. The Tiger, the symbol of invincibility, had become a burden, a machine too heavy to move, too expensive to replace. Each one that burned was a loss the Reich could never recover. Meanwhile, the Soviets kept building, faster, simpler, more relentless. They didn't chase perfection, they chased endurance, and endurance was winning. In the ruins of villages and forests once claimed by the Wehrmacht, German tanks now stood abandoned, stripped, their massive guns pointing at nothing. Children played around them. Farmers melted their armor for tools. The monsters of steel had become ghosts of their own legend. Even inside the high command, the illusion began to rot. Reports from the front stopped calling defeats tactical withdrawals. They started using another word: collapse. Officers blamed each other. Engineers blamed production. Production blamed shortages, and everyone blamed the weather, the terrain, the impossible odds, anything but the truth. The truth was simple. Germany had built the perfect war machine for a war it could no longer afford to fight. Every tank lost at Kursk wasn't just a machine. It was time, oil, manpower, steel, and the myth of German superiority all burning together. And when that myth was gone, so was fear. The Red Army was no longer defending, it was hunting. City after city, the line moved westward. The war that Hitler planned to win in months was now consuming everything he had left: men, machines, and the illusion of control. For the crews who once believed the Tiger made them untouchable, there was nothing left to believe in. The steel beasts that were supposed to bring victory had become their own tombs.
By the end of 1943, one truth had settled over the Eastern Front like a cold fog. Germany would never rise again to what it once was. Kursk had not just broken the army, it had broken the illusion of destiny. The Wehrmacht, once unstoppable, was now retreating through the same fields where its soldiers had once marched forward with songs and banners. Every burned tiger left behind told the same story, not of defeat in battle, but of a lost belief. Steel couldn't save them anymore. Technology, precision, discipline, none of it mattered when the enemy refused to collapse. In bunkers and command posts, officers spoke quietly, careful not to let despair seep into their voices. But they all knew. The numbers didn't lie. Too few tanks, too little fuel, too many graves. The myth of the invincible German machine had died at Kursk, and its death marked the beginning of something else, the slow, unstoppable advance of the Red Army. The same fields that once echoed with the roar of German engines now thundered with Soviet tracks. T-34s moved in endless waves, their armor scarred but unbroken, their crews hardened by 2 years of survival. For them, this was more than revenge. It was justice forged in steel. Every destroyed Tiger, every abandoned Panther was a reminder. War is not won by pride, it's won by endurance. And endurance was now entirely on the Soviet side. In diaries recovered after the war, German tankers wrote of the same feeling: a quiet, heavy dread. Not fear of the enemy, but fear of the truth that the war was already lost, and they were only driving deeper into ruin. They spoke of engines that wouldn't start, of comrades trapped in burning tanks, of orders that made no sense. The miracle machines had become iron coffins. Even the officers began to question, how could this happen? How could the most advanced army in the world lose to the very enemy it once called inferior? The answer was simple. They underestimated everything that truly mattered: the will to adapt, the power of simplicity, the force of unity.
Kursk wasn't just another battle. It was a mirror,
showing the world that arrogance can destroy even genius. From that moment, Germany never regained control. The front kept collapsing, town by town, river by river, until there was nowhere left to go. By the time Soviet troops reached Berlin 2 years later, the dream of the invincible tiger was nothing more than rusted metal under the spring rain. The men who once believed in it either vanished with their machines or lived long enough to understand that the real power in war lies not in armor or firepower, but in resilience, sacrifice, and the ability to stand when everything else falls apart. And so, the legend of Kursk became more than a story about tanks. It became a story about the collapse of faith and the rise of a nation that refused to be broken.